Welcome back to another episode of Light Beer, Dark Money. I'm Sean Noble.
And I'm Chris Clements.
And we have one, a special guest, and two, talking about a very, very important and concerning issue today.
Yeah, absolutely. My good friend Amir is here. He just got back from Israel. And we've touched on the issues of Israel in the past, with our friend John Desser, but we haven't had somebody live in studio who's actually just gotten back and been doing some great work there.
Well, we haven't really delved into it deep. I mean, we've talked about the awful, horrific attack on
October 7th.
But the thing that is still blows my mind is that we still have dozens and dozens of hostages that are there.
136.
136. Good night. So, Amir, talk to us about what did you experience while you're in Israel, and what are you telling people now that you're back? What's the message?
So, thanks for having me, first of all. Chris and Sean, I'm humbled to be here.
It's great having you.
You guys are doing a phenomenal work. I watched a couple of your episodes. And it's
phenomenal sometimes.
Yeah. I just got back from 3 weeks. I mean, it's my homeland. I'm born and raised. My older daughter lives in Israel. My sisters, my dad, who is 91 years old. And just to give you an idea, as I land in Israel and at the car rental check-in, there is a siren going on at the airport. And everybody is rushed to a bomb shelter. This is 3 months after the war started.
Yeah.
So, the sense of alertness and the sense of discomfort, we normalize it in Israel, but it's just not normal.
Right. That's a great point.
So I definitely came home and found a traumatized country. You can tell that the level of fear, anxiety, anger are very present. You can tell that people are hopeless, are extremely concerned. Some people actually talk, will there be a Israel down the road? What is it going to look like? And there is real, mother to kids that are like, what are we doing? We have not figured this out. So it's a tough time. And I actually think that it's not just a tough time for Israel. We can talk about anti-Semitism here in the United States, here in Arizona. We can talk about the escalation of the polarity, hate, and it's tough. And I think it's a fight of good versus evil.
That's exactly right. And I think that is the part that gets lost especially here in the United States. Israel has been a key ally from the beginning. And what has been stunning to me is the how many people are apologists to Hamas and the Palestinians who want to destroy Israel. I mean, they talk about from the river to the sea as if it's just some happy slogan that's going to be, we're all going to be free, without recognizing that they're literally chanting for the genocide of Israel. I mean, of Jews in Israel. It's the thing that it's because often people say, well, how in the world did Hitler was he able to do the things he did? And we're getting a little flavor of that here, because it's just because we have popular culture where literally, if you go on TikTok or these social media sites, the predominant message is a pro-Palestinian message, anti-Israel message, which is just astounding to me.
So first, I think it's important to understand Hamas as an organization, and I went this time when the war started to actually read, the declaration of the establishment of Hamas as was amended in 2018. It's an organization that states, black on white, that wants to eliminate the state of Israel, has some other statements about the Jewish people at large, And I think it's important to understand that we're dealing with an organization that all of what they want is to extinct Israel.
Right.
And when you have countries in the world like South Africa, for instance, or you have other governments that are trying to find the right balance, or trying to talk to me about, well, who is the oppressor, who is the oppressed here? It's really ignorance is bliss, sometimes people say, and I think it's convenient to just say, oh, you have a strong army, you can do this, we do, but by the way, because we're such a high moral army, because we have the power, we actually use extra cautious and extra measures to make sure that we don't hurt civilians and that we're targeting just terrorists. Now, when they hide behind their people, when they capture their own people under threat and under starvation, there's going to be casualties, and it's very unfortunate. But as a global thing, to understand that we're dealing with good versus evil, and it's stimulated and comes with ideology, with extreme religion, that is affecting globally. I spoke yesterday with a friend in the UK, and he says, we're here concerned in London because there are talks about trying to install the Sharia laws in the United Kingdom.
Yep.
And he said, can you imagine that? Now, we think that it's in London, or we think that it's in Israel, but it happens here.
It's in Michigan too.
Well, and I think that we're not that far away from Europe at large being lost to big swaths demanding Sharia law.
Yeah.
I mean, in Germany and Israel, or I'm sorry, in France, and probably the UK. I mean, we're seeing it in Michigan.
There are no-go areas already in France and in Germany, and certainly also in London. But then the insult to injury that was revealed this last week is even the UN is in on the game of radicalizing Muslims in Gaza with the United Nations Relief and Works Agency,
right,
with UNRWA.
Yeah, and UNRWA, we've been saying that for years.
UNRWA, I don't know what it's called, but it needs to be dismantled. And apparently we've given like $300 million to it. Yeah. And we've only withheld over the last week like 28 million or something like that. It's a joke.
Yeah. And I want to take a second to go back and talk about hostages.
Absolutely.
When you talk about organizations,
and we are wearing dog tags that you brought for us.
Yeah, from Israel.
From Israel,
it says
which is fantastic.
It says in Hebrew, our heart is captured in Gaza, and in English, bring them home now. Because we still have 136 hostages. And I want, we now have about 100 hostages that were released, and we hear stories about how women are being sexually enslaved, and about how the rapes, the abuse, the violence, the fear. Think about it. I mean, 1-year-old baby just celebrated birthday in captivity. What would you do if it was your son?
I can't imagine.
And I think we miss that. And when we talk to organizations and we're trying to be understanding and take the high road, if you will, and talk about this, these are human beings, civilians that have done nothing bad to nobody. And they're captured and manipulated and taken advantage of for the benefit of terrorizing. And we're coping with it, all of us, because it's not until we raise our voice in a way that really changes the policies across the world, not just across the country. And here in the state of Arizona, I would love to see much more public speaking of people that condemn certain things, disallow certain things, and be vocal about it. Holocaust didn't happen just by Hitler.
Yeah.
It happened by all the people that stayed silent around him. And I think that's the fundamental that we're missing right now here locally, of that voice that says, no more. This is not okay by me, that there are 136 hostages still sitting in Gaza, that there are still rockets being fired. That it's just not okay.
Well, unfortunately, the radical left, the Marxists in this country, have captured the narrative. The narrative now is Israel's committing genocide in Gaza, which is outrageous. It's not true.
Yeah. So I want to take a slightly different approach, if I can,
Yeah.
They've taken it because we allowed it.
Yeah.
So I can't say that, I don't want to be their victim. I want to speak up.
Sure.
And those who care about these topics, stand up, speak up, make an opinion, and make a change. Attend events. We're going to bring here in the next couple of weeks a screening. The IDF created a documentary movie that is taking all the GoPro cameras of the Hamas terrorists from October 7th and created a 47-minute movie. And we're going to do it's a private screening. It's not publicly available. It has to be approved by the IDF and administered by the Foreign Ministry. But we're trying to educate leaders, political leaders, education leaders. And I spoke to some leaders last night and said, I really want to know, but I also don't want to know. And I really want to, and it's like, I don't get it.
Yeah, that
it's really going with the ignorance.
Right. It's important for people to. I have not seen the 47-minute video. I have every person that I've heard from who has seen it, because a lot of journalists have seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Some political leaders in D.C. It is brutal, and not one person that has seen it comes out of it thinking anything other than we have to stop this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's important for as many people as possible to see it, because it is, yes, it's gruesome and it's disgusting and it's awful and it's scary, but that's the point.
But
because they're doing this and they want to continue to do it, and if we're not careful, they'll do it here.
Oh, absolutely, because of the porous nature of our border and the terrorists that are coming in now, and that's precisely what they're aiming to do.
The other concept that I got in Israel, when I talked to a dear friend of mine, lost his brother and his nephew on October 7th. And he has a podcast in Israel, and I was guest on his podcast. And as we spoke about the October 7th, we both consider ourselves center, maybe a little left. We both advocated for pulling out of Gaza 15 years ago. We both advocated for 2 states for 2 countries. And it's a wake-up call. Because when you deal with an enemy that wants to eliminate you, then you have to really take that intent seriously. So the other concept we came up with is that the containment, like we agreed to contain, if you shoot at us rockets, if it's once a month, that's okay. If it's twice a week, it's not too bad. Oh, well, now we have Iron Dome, so we can live with it. It's not, nobody died. It's okay. But it's not okay.
It's not okay.
We live under constant threat, and it's not okay. And it's not okay when you have here downtown people calling for support of Hamas.
Yeah.
It's not okay when I have a cross, like right by my house down the street, I have people protesting river to the sea, which it's not okay. And unless
the majority of which have no idea what they're saying.
Right. Well,
those sort of man on the street interviews have been really revealing. They have no clue.
That is very true, Chris. But at the same time, I think as leadership, law enforcement, locally, we cannot allow that. Because when you allow a group of 50 people to do that here with one sign and say, I can disregard that. They don't really know. They're paid guns. They're whatever. Then I end up with larger and bigger.
Absolutely.
Until the Iron Dome doesn't catch it anymore.
Right. Well, if we allow that to fester here, then it only makes it harder for our politicians to do the right thing with Israel, and it also enables terrorists to do their thing here. And I think the political part, obviously you can see a lot of hand-wringing in the Biden administration, a lot of discussion about, he's having a hard time with Netanyahu, and he's, in opposition with what Netanyahu's doing. And, they're trying to look for what's beyond this. Well, that's fine, but let's get the hostages back. I mean, there is no let's get beyond this. We need to get this resolved now. I mean, we need to stop Hamas, and we need to get the hostages back.
Sean, over my career, I developed a leadership method called soul leadership. And if I can sidebar for a second, just
Yeah,
to say
absolutely.
what it's about. It's really about the alignment of emotional intentions, choices, and actions. And when you align those, I believe, you end up operating from a higher sight, if you will, or soul, or whatever you want to call it. And I think when it comes to emotional intentions, everybody will tell you, we want to feel safe, we want to feel free, we want to feel creative, we want to feel empowered, etc., right? Choices is a little tricky. I always say that it's the interpretation we give to events that, how do we interpret it? Is it to me or for me? And if we interpret it as something for me, and I'm talking October 7, then it's a wake-up call. And then the third element is the action. Am I willing, ready, and able to take the action necessary? And I think if you talk about the first and the second, I think in some way both the American administration, the Biden administration, and the Netanyahu administration, which I have my own criticism to, by the way, are aligned for the most part. It's the action that counts. Mm-hmm. And if we say all the right things and we mobilize, gear and people, and I just spoke actually with a Marine Corps officer that came back from Israel and shared some fascinating stories. Without the action around it and without really taking care of the root cause, then we'll have, Hamas is just one example of a radical Islam-fed, hate-based terror organization.
Yeah.
So is the Houthis, so are the Hezbollah, and you can eliminate them, but you don't eliminate the producer of that. And that requires education, and it's a long-term investment. We talked about Purdue University event last night that I think is doing a phenomenal job in that aspect. But it's also the understanding on an individual level of what's required of us. It's not just about, I want to be free and I want to feel safe and I want to be in great spirits. What are you doing about it?
Right. There's actually we have to defend that. We have to do stuff to keep that freedom.
Yeah.
Well, and unfortunately, we fed through our support of the UN and support of other organizations. Our aid to Gaza over the years has fed this hate.
Absolutely.
Well, and the
you've got
the
congressmen
money, the money going to Iran.
Reading school curriculum on the floor of the United States House of Representatives, saying this is what we are aiding. We are aiding hate. And until we change that, until we change the mentality and where the money is going and be able to direct the money appropriately or cut it off entirely, we're going to continue. This is a generational issue.
Absolutely.
What happens after Gaza? That's the biggest question right now. Because to your point, Gaza could be a parking lot if Israel wanted it to be today.
Right.
And woe be to Hezbollah in the north. They've got more missiles, but if they start firing them, Syria and Lebanon are in deep, deep trouble because then they have a wider war on their hands.
Right.
So what from a geopolitical standpoint, it's a mess, but at the same time, there's going to have to be a bigger solution.
Absolutely, and I think it's we have to think about it systematically, because if we try to isolate one area and ignore the other, we'll miss the mark. And I think we have to, as we think about it systematically, if we don't come to a broader understanding, a global understanding. So it's not just this group, it's not just that group, it's not for this territory, it's for a broader understanding. Israel has a historical and a legal right to the country in the place it is today. And we can talk about the exact border lines. I'm a little less concerned about the specifics, but the concept. And then we can talk about, the Palestinians. Look, I genuinely feel bad for the Palestinians people, because if you think about them as a tribe, Egypt doesn't want them.
Right. Well, that's a whole other podcast.
Jordan doesn't want them. It's like, there are so many other places. There are 2.2 million Palestinians in Gaza now that didn't want to be anywhere else but wanted to be in Gaza, and they wanted to be in Gaza because they get paid, because they get all the packages that Hamas is fueling them with, but they don't want to be elsewhere. Look at what's happening to Israeli Arabs that live in Israel. They have businesses, they have families, they have education, they have infrastructure. They love it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing that a lot of people miss, is that there's a lot of Arabs in Israel, and they're doing well, and they want to be there. I mean, they're not hostages there.
Yeah,
I mean, they're there by their own volition.
They're represented in the parliament. They have, I want to say, their political two parties, I think, is about 10% of the parliament. I mean, they get their rights. I mean, there is some of them, by the way, serve in the military. The Bedouins serve in the military, and they're some of our best soldiers. We just lost one last week. So I think it's important to understand that it's really the ideology that we have to deal with, not so much the end result will reflect itself, in the ground, but we have to deal with the fundamentals of allowing Israel to live in where it is today.
Yeah, well, from a broader perspective, I just don't see how you go back, or I don't see how, the whole idea of a two-state solution. And then I went to Israel, maybe 5-6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And when I toured the entire area and then went into Jericho, went up in the mountains, went to see what they were proposing, I'm like, well, this doesn't seem like this is going to work.
Right.
For political leaders now to even propose such a thing doesn't seem really bright. And at the same time, for the idea that handing Gaza back over to like the Palestinian Authority, which in and of itself is a terrorist group, that doesn't seem very bright. It seems like Israel really, with the help of America, is going to have to expand its borders, expand its security just to keep itself safe.
Right. So,
and the Arab world's going to have to accept that.
So I'm putting aside borders.
Yeah.
The first thing we need to focus on is security.
Yeah.
So we can't live on the border of an imminent threat that keeps, trickling down. So, and I think that's the mental state that I'm coming back, from Israel with, is the first thing. We need to regain safety in our own country, and at all costs. The reason Gaza is not a parking lot is because they have 136 hostages, and there are so many civilians that are uninvolved to some extent. I mean, we can talk about if they really are or aren't. But I want to give them, the benefit of doubt.
No, I mean, Israel's shown incredible restraint.
Right, and it has to. Israel have always
Absolutely.
been held to a standard higher than any other country that I know. If it was us in Iraq or Afghanistan, there was no discussion. I mean, it was like, okay, just we're done here, and rightfully so. But I'm proud of the higher standard we're held by. I don't feel bad about it. But it's also, we need to take the action, and we need to regain security in our own homeland. And once we get there, we can then start talking about, and we also have to see an evolution of, the opponent, of the call it dinosaur or whatever you want to call it, but the opponent that really shows up with hate, with efforts that are just inhumane. I mean, that movie that we talked about demonstrate how barbaric those actions were. This is not just terror for the sake of terror. This is not, it's just inhumane. I mean, people say animalistic. No animal does what these people
this
do.
was a celebratory. I mean, that's the thing that is the most disturbing to me is how celebratory these Hamas folks were in the killing of Jews. I mean, the idea, this guy that calls back to,
Yeah, I was just thinking of that.
Mom, I killed 10 Jews.
Right.
It's like, that's outrageous.
Right. And
It's unbelievable.
and the
this
beheadings.
This isn't
and
just
the
war.
rapes,
This is.
And it's great that you're going to be airing that.
Yeah.
I read some time ago that Gal Gadot,
Yeah.
Wonder Woman,
Yeah.
who a lot of people don't know is Israeli,
Yeah.
served in the IDF.
Yeah.
And she did a screening in Hollywood and actually changed some hearts. There were a lot of folks who were really skeptical, but she changed some hearts.
Which is what we're looking.
They walked out of that saying, "Oh my God!" And yet there were protesters outside,
Of course.
which is insane,
Astounding.
Yeah, yeah.
just
so
insane.
so for me,
From
really,
the river to the sea. Which river? In
Yeah.
the blank. Which sea?
yeah,
Red Sea, right?
The Red Sea, right?
yeah. We've all seen
I saw that.
Yeah.
Amir, what can our listeners do? What are some of the action items that you think would be helpful for people who are watching or listening to help in this?
Yeah, so my first recommendation for people is to educate themselves and find your own trusted sources, but educate yourself and be knowledgeable about what happened on October 7th, the history of the region, the dynamics, the intentions of the different people. Just be more familiar. Second, we've formed here an organization that is not formally an entity, but group of volunteers. It's called Phoenix Israel Situation Desk, and we've done lots of things in collaboration with the hostage organization in Israel, and we actually recently started doing like social evenings in people's houses to commemorate the fallen and the hostages. And it's a good opportunity to educate yourself. So if people are interested in attending or follow us on social media or write to us, and we'll be more than happy to provide resources. But the last part, which to me is the most important piece, speak up.
Yeah.
Speak up. Silence and being quiet doesn't help.
Yeah.
Doesn't help anybody, and I don't think it helps those who are staying silent the way they do. I think it's really time where we are all invited to stand up, speak up for the core values we believe in, and the vision we have for the world and for our next generation. Because what do we want to leave behind? What's going to be our legacy?
Right. Where can people find you or find the organization to get involved?
So Phoenix Israel Situation Desk on Facebook, Instagram,
Okay.
Website. I mean, I'm happy to. We can put in the comments.
Yeah, we'll get that on there.
Yeah.
Good. Well, thank you so much for what you're doing. Thank you for being here and talking about it. I'm certain we'll be talking about this more. We continue to pray for the release of the hostages and hopefully find peace in the region.
Really appreciate you both having me, Chris and Sean. I join your prayers. I mean, I keep saying we're 16.5 million people in trauma right now.
Yeah.
So we're very activated. We're not asking for mercy. We're not asking for anything, but for everybody stand up for what you believe in.
Yeah.
And like I said, good versus evil. So.
And we have such a great and growing Jewish community here in Phoenix.
Yeah.
And they're blessing that they're here.
Yeah, really amazing. And the
Especially
collaboration.
the Orthodox community here. It's just.
And by the way, the collaboration between the different, I mean, I met yesterday a group, we talked about it, that all, churches and they were so educated and so understanding of the dynamic and the details and the situation, and so many volunteers going from here to Israel. It's really heartwarming. That's one of the, silver lining of this whole dynamic, is to see how the civilians in Israel stepped up and helped, in so many different ways. And globally, how many people have come to Israel to see, to educate, and to speak up. I still think that, we need to broaden that, because, as you said, the dominant voice on the different social platforms is the other voice, not.
Well, I mean, as Sean said, it is a battle between good and evil, and Hamas is evil.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They are the embodiment of evil. If we lose Israel, we lose our humanity.
No question. Thank you, Amir.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.